Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Science Channel. Tonight, we are exploring the fascinating world of metabolism, the hidden current that powers every heartbeat, every thought, and every breath you take. It is the process that turns food into motion, warmth, and memory. It works while you sleep, while you dream, and even when you do nothing at all. Metabolism is not just about burning calories or losing weight. It is a vast network of signals and transformations, a living chemistry set unfolding inside trillions of cells. It links your brain to your muscles, your hormones to your hunger, and your past habits to your present energy. It responds to light and darkness, and to movement and stillness. Beneath the surface of your skin, an intricate dance of molecules is constantly at work, and even when you rest, it never pauses. If you enjoy these gentle journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, allow your shoulders to soften. Allow your breathing to slow, and let your mind begin to gently unwind as we wander through this living engine together. Let's begin. Your metabolism never truly stops, even in your deepest sleep. Even when you lie perfectly still, your body is working with steady purpose. Your lungs keep drawing in oxygen, and your heart keeps pushing blood through miles of vessels. Inside your cells, repair crews patch tiny damage from the day, and your immune system keeps watch for trouble. Your liver balances the chemistry of your blood, and your brain cycles through the nightly housekeeping that helps memory and learning. While you sleep, you also keep a stable temperature, which means fuel is still being turned into warmth. If you have ever woken up cold, thirsty, or hungry, you have felt the night shift in action. Sleep changes the pace of many processes, but it does not turn the engine off. It simply switches to a different set of priorities. Most of your daily energy burn comes from basic body maintenance. If you imagine your day as a budget, most of the spending happens before you choose a single activity. Keeping cells alive takes constant energy because membranes must hold their charge and proteins must keep their shapes. Your kidneys filter vast amounts of fluid, and they reclaim what you cannot afford to lose. Your liver runs round the clock, processing, sorting, and storing, so the rest of you can rely on a stable internal environment. Even your bones are not silent structures. They are living tissue that is continually renewed. This is why 2 days that look identical from the outside can still have a steady metabolic cost. Exercise matters for health and strength, yet the quiet background work often dominates the total. Your body is like a city that must keep lights, water, and maintenance running every moment. Tiny movements add up. Fidgeting can rival formal exercise. A day is full of motion that rarely gets counted. Shifting in a chair, pacing during a phone call, tapping a foot, carrying groceries, standing up and sitting down, all of it has a cost. This kind of activity is often called non-exercise movement, and it can vary wildly between people. Some bodies naturally seek motion, while others settle into stillness without noticing. Over hours, those small choices can become a meaningful share of daily energy use. The important part is that it is not a single workout that makes the difference. It is the pattern of a whole day. This is why 2 people with the same gym routine can have very different totals, because one moves constantly between tasks and the other stays parked. Tiny movements are like loose change. One coin means little, but a jar fills faster than you expect. Your metabolism is partly inherited, but it is not destiny. You arrive in the world with a genetic blueprint that shapes appetite signals, hormone sensitivity, and how readily you store or release fuel. That blueprint can influence why one person runs warmer, why another feels hungrier sooner, and why some bodies handle the same diet with different outcomes. Yet genes do not run your life like a script. They behave more like a set of tendencies, and daily inputs can steer how those tendencies show up. Training can change how muscle uses fuel. Sleep can change how your brain interprets hunger. Long-term habits can reshape how the liver and pancreas respond to meals. Even stress levels can influence which metabolic switches get leaned on most. Your body adapts to patterns, and patterns can be chosen. Your brain is a hungry organ, using a surprisingly large energy share. Although it is not a heavy part of you, it is intensely active. Neurons must constantly reset their electrical balance after sending signals, and that resetting costs energy every time. Your brain also never stops interpreting the world, even in silence, because it manages vision, balance, emotion, and planning beneath awareness. It spends fuel to keep attention steady, to decide what matters, and to predict what might happen next. That is why intense mental effort can feel tiring, even if your body has barely moved. When your blood sugar drops, your thinking can feel foggy because the brain depends on a reliable supply. It can adapt in special situations, but it dislikes surprises. In many ways, your mind is an energy management system that is also powered by the energy it manages. Two people can eat the same meal and burn it differently. Food is not only calories, it is information, and each body reads that information in its own way. One person may absorb a little more from the same plate, while another passes more along unused. Hormones can steer nutrients toward storage or toward immediate use, and those signals differ with sleep, stress, training, and long-term habits. Even the microbes in the gut can change what ends up available because they break down parts of food that humans cannot digest alone. Past dieting, muscle mass, and how active someone is between workouts can also shape the outcome. This is why copying another person's routine can feel confusing, because results may not match expectations. None of this makes physics vanish. It means the path from bite to energy is a branching set of decisions. The same meal can become warmth, movement, or stored reserve, depending on the body that receives it. Heat after eating is real. Digestion itself costs energy. When you eat, your body does not simply file the food away. It has to break it down, move it, absorb it, and transform it into forms your cells can use. Your stomach churns, and your intestines push waves of motion forward. Your pancreas and other organs release chemicals that help dismantle the meal into smaller pieces. Then, the nutrients must be packaged and shipped through the bloodstream, and the liver must decide where many of them should go next. All of this work generates warmth, which is why some people feel a subtle rise in body temperature after a big meal. The cost is not identical for every food, because different nutrients require different handling. It is also shaped by how much you ate, and by your body's current needs. Digestion is not passive. It is an active process with a real energy price. Muscle is quietly expensive tissue, even when you are resting. It is easy to think of muscle as useful only when it moves you, yet it has ongoing costs simply because it is alive. Muscle cells maintain stored fuel, keep their internal chemistry in balance, and continually renew the proteins that make contraction possible. They also act as a major place where your body handles incoming nutrients after meals. When muscle tissue is more abundant, it can change how your whole system deals with energy, even during calm hours. That is one reason strength training can have long effects beyond the workout itself. Muscle is also metabolically flexible, which means it can shift between different fuels based on what is available and what you are doing. You do not need to be sprinting for muscle to matter. Its presence alone influences your baseline energy needs, like keeping more rooms lit in a house. Your gut microbes help decide how much energy you absorb. Inside your intestines lives a vast community that treats your meals as an ecosystem. Some microbes are skilled at breaking down parts of food your own enzymes cannot handle, and that can change what becomes available to you. They also produce compounds that can influence hunger signals, gut movement, and even how the intestinal lining behaves. What is especially fascinating is how personal it can be. Two people can eat the same foods, yet their microbial communities may respond differently, producing different mixes of byproducts. Those differences can shape digestion in ways you will never see, yet you may feel them as shifts in appetite or comfort. Your microbiome can change with diet, travel, illness, and medications, sometimes surprisingly fast. Metabolism is not only a human story. It is also a partnership with countless tiny lives that share your table. Chewing more can slightly raise the energy your body uses during a meal. The first stage of digestion begins before the food reaches your stomach, and it starts with real work. Your jaw muscles contract again and again, and your nervous system coordinates timing and pressure with fine control. Saliva begins breaking down certain molecules, and thorough chewing creates more surface area for later digestion to work efficiently. That extra effort is not huge, but it is part of the truth that eating is an active process. It also changes the pace of a meal, which can give your fullness signals more time to register. Many people have had the experience of inhaling food and feeling hungry again soon after, then eating slowly and feeling satisfied with less. Chewing is not a magic trick, and it will not rewrite biology. Still, it is a reminder that metabolism includes mechanics, rhythm, and time, not just nutrients on paper. Smell and sight can trigger insulin responses before the first bite. Your body does not wait for food to arrive in the stomach. It starts preparing when food seems imminent. The aroma of baking bread, the sight of a favorite dessert, even the routine of sitting down at a usual mealtime can prompt early physiological responses. This is sometimes called the cephalic phase, and it includes releasing saliva, shifting digestive readiness, and in some cases, nudging insulin upward. The point is preparation. If food is coming, the body wants to handle it smoothly, and insulin is part of the plan for managing incoming glucose. This can feel surprising because it means metabolism is predictive. Your brain gathers sensory cues and it tells your organs to get ready. It also helps explain why cravings can begin before hunger is truly physical. The body is learning patterns and it acts on them. Once you notice this, everyday cues become fascinating. A kitchen smell is not only a smell. It is a signal that can ripple through hormones and blood chemistry in seconds. Protein usually takes more energy to process than fat. Not all calories ask the same amount of work from your body. Protein arrives as long chains that must be broken apart, sorted, and rebuilt into the specific forms your tissues need. If the body cannot use some of those building blocks right away, it has to convert and handle the leftovers, which adds more steps and more energy cost. That is why protein often produces a stronger rise in post-meal heat than fats do. It is also why protein can feel more filling for many people, because it triggers a cascade of digestion and signaling that takes time. This does not mean protein is automatically better, or that fat is somehow lazy fuel. It means nutrients have different processing costs, and the body pays those costs in real time. Metabolism is a story of transformation. Some transformations are more expensive than others. Resistance training can raise resting burn by adding active tissue. If cardio feels like spending energy in the moment, lifting can feel like investing in the equipment that spends energy for you. When muscle grows, it brings more cells that need upkeep, and that upkeep has a daily cost. Strength training also triggers a recovery process that uses nutrients for repair and rebuilding, which can influence energy needs beyond the session itself. Many people are surprised that lifting can change hunger, sleep, and posture because it changes how the body organizes itself. There is also a confidence effect. Movements that once felt demanding start to feel ordinary, and daily activity often increases because the body feels more capable. That can matter as much as the physiology. Resistance training is not only for athletes. It is a way to reshape the metabolic baseline by changing what your body is made of. You are not only burning fuel, you are building a body that handles fuel differently. Endurance training changes how quickly muscles learn to use fat. With repeated long efforts, muscles become better at preparing for the job. They can increase the machinery that moves fats into the cell and breaks them down, which can delay the moment when energy feels scarce. Endurance training also increases capillaries, the tiny blood vessels that deliver oxygen and fuel to working tissue. Their delivery matters because fat oxidation relies heavily on oxygen, and better delivery can make the process smoother. Over time, trained muscles may spare more glycogen at easier intensities, which can help you last longer before you feel that heavy, drained sensation. This is why a beginner jog can feel breathless and shaky, while the same pace later feels almost like a warm-up. The body did not become braver. It became more efficient at choosing fuels for the job. Endurance training is like teaching muscles a new language. At first, it is awkward. Then, it becomes fluent. After exercise, oxygen use can stay elevated for a while. When a workout ends, the story is not finished. Your body keeps breathing a little harder because it is restoring balance. It refills energy stores inside muscle, clears byproducts, and returns temperature and hormones toward baseline. Heart rate comes down, but repair and reorganization continue in the background. This is often called excess post-exercise oxygen consumption, and it is one reason workouts can have effects that outlast the visible effort. The size of the effect depends on intensity and duration, and it is not a magical calorie bonfire. It is the cost of recovery work. People sometimes notice this as warmth after training, or as a sense of being pleasantly tired even at rest. It is your body paying the bill for the disruption you created, then laying down improvements for next time. Exercise is stress with a purpose. Recovery is where the purpose gets fulfilled. Ketones are backup fuel, made when fat burning runs high. When carbohydrate availability is low, the liver can turn fat-derived molecules into ketones, which travel through the blood as an alternate energy source. Some tissues use them readily, and the brain can also adapt to use them more than usual. That flexibility is part of why humans can survive periods without food. Ketones are not just calories in disguise. They also act like signals, influencing certain pathways that cells use to manage stress and repair. Some people notice ketones as a distinct breath sent during fasting or very low carbohydrate eating. Clinicians have used ketogenic approaches for specific medical conditions, most famously certain forms of epilepsy, long before ketones became a taboo. Wellness buzzword. The key idea is not trendiness. It is resilience. Your body has a built-in contingency plan, and ketones are one of its traveling fuel options when the usual route is limited. Your muscles can burn fat and sugar at the same time. It is not an either-or switch. It is more like a mixing board where the sliders move depending on intensity, fitness, and what you ate recently. During easier activity, muscles often lean more on fat because it supplies steady energy for long stretches. As effort rises, muscles pull more heavily from sugar because it can deliver power quickly. Most of the time, both are contributing, and the proportions keep adjusting moment by moment. Training can change how smoothly you make these transitions. Well-trained muscles often get better at using fat at higher intensities, which can spare sugar for when you truly need speed. After meals, the mix can change again, because circulating nutrients influence what is easiest to burn. This is one reason your body can feel different on the same walk. depending on whether you just ate or you have gone hours without food. Fuel choice is dynamic, not fixed. Insulin helps store energy, but it also shapes appetite signals. It is famous for guiding glucose into cells, yet it also acts as a messenger, but the body is in a fed state. After a meal, rising insulin helps direct nutrients towards storage and building, which supports recovery and growth. It also speaks to the brain, where it can influence hunger and reward. When insulin signaling is working well, it is part of the system that helps you feel that you have had enough. When signaling becomes impaired, the same hormone can be present, yet the message may land poorly, and the whole loop can drift. Insulin also interacts with other appetite hormones, and it helps decide how strongly the body holds onto stored fat during the hours after eating. This is why food is not just energy. It is a cascade of chemical messages. Insulin is one of the loudest voices in that conversation, and it affects more than blood sugar charts. Glucagon helps release energy when blood sugar dips. If insulin is a storage signal, glucagon is a mobilizing signal. When you have not eaten for a while, glucagon rises and tells the liver to make fuel available again. It can prompt the liver to break down stored carbohydrate, and it can also encourage the creation of new glucose from building blocks the body keeps in circulation. That support is especially important for organs that prefer steady glucose availability. Glucagon also nudges fat stores to release fatty acids, which can become fuel for many tissues. You can think of it as the hormone that helps you glide between meals without crashing. It is also part of why fasting does not immediately mean weakness. Your body has a coordinated set of signals that keep energy flowing, even when no new food is coming in. In that sense, glucagon is not a backup plan. It is part of the standard design that keeps you functioning through normal gaps between eating. Adrenaline can unlock stored fuel in seconds. This is the chemistry of sudden urgency. When your brain senses danger or intense demand, adrenaline surges and your body shifts into action mode. Heart rate climbs, airways open, and blood flow is redirected toward muscles. At the same time, adrenaline signals stored fuels to become available quickly. In muscle, it helps accelerate the release of energy from local carbohydrate stores, which supports rapid movement. In fat tissue, it can encourage the release of fatty acids into the bloodstream, which become additional fuel options. This is why a startling moment can make you feel instantly awake, even if you were tired a heartbeat earlier. It is also why stress can change appetite and energy in complicated ways, because the same system that helps you sprint from danger can also be triggered by modern pressures that do not require movement. Adrenaline is not just an emotion hormone. It is a fuel access hormone, and it can change your internal economy almost instantly. Cortisol helps manage fuel during stress, but timing matters. Cortisol follows a daily rhythm, often rising toward morning to help you wake and get moving, then tapering later as the day winds down. In the right pattern, it supports focus and energy availability because it helps ensure fuel is accessible when you need it. The problem comes when cortisol stays high too often or at the wrong times. Chronic stress can keep the body in a state of readiness, which can affect appetite, sleep quality, and where energy is directed. Cortisol can also influence how the body breaks down stored resources, including pulling from protein tissues when fuel needs stay elevated. That is not a moral failure. It is a survival strategy that can become costly when it runs too long. Timing matters because your metabolism is coordinated with your internal clock. When cortisol is out of sync, many systems drift together. That can leave you tired at night, hungry at odd hours, and wired when you hope to rest. Leptin is a formless messenger, and the brain can resist it. Leptin is released by fat tissue, and it helps tell the brain how much stored energy is available. When leptin signals are heard clearly, they can support a stable sense of satiety over time. Yet in many people, the brain becomes less responsive to leptin's message. This is often called leptin resistance, and it can make the body behave as if energy stores are lower than they truly are. Hunger can rise, and energy expenditure can subtly shift downward, because the brain tries to protect what it believes is a threatened reserve. Sleep loss, inflammation, and long-term overeating can all be associated with disrupted leptin signaling. The fascinating part is the logic behind it. The brain is not trying to punish you. It is trying to prevent starvation, using signals that were shaped in environments where food was less predictable. When leptin messaging falters, appetite is not simply preference. It becomes biology steering behavior. Ghrelin rises before meals, and it can nudge you to eat. This hormone is often produced in the stomach, and it tends to rise when the body expects food. As expectation can be trained by routine. If you usually eat at a certain time, ghrelin may start climbing ahead of schedule. Like a dinner bell, your body rings for itself. Ghrelin does more than create a hollow feeling. It can influence the brain's reward circuits, making food seem more appealing and more worth pursuing. It can also rise during weight loss, which is one reason maintaining loss can feel harder than initiating it. Your biology interprets a drop in stored energy as a situation to correct, and ghrelin becomes part of the correction signal. This is not weakness. It is a built-in alarm meant to keep you alive. What makes it so interesting is that your choices and your schedule can shape the pattern. Regular sleep, consistent meals, and stress management can all influence how loudly that alarm rings. Sleep loss can tilt hunger signals toward craving more calories. After a short night, many people notice a strange mismatch. You can feel tired, yet food seems more tempting, especially the kind that is sweet, salty, and fast. Part of that is hormones that help regulate hunger and fullness drifting out of balance. Another part is the brain looking for quick fuel and quick comfort when alertness is low. The result can feel like your appetite has a mind of its own, even if you plan to eat normally. Sleep loss can also make it harder to notice subtle fullness cues, so portions creep up without feeling dramatic in the moment. This is not a character flaw. It is the body trying to solve the fatigue problem with the tool it understands best, which is energy intake. When sleep returns to normal, many people find cravings soften without a fight. Your internal clock changes how you handle sugar across the day. Your body runs on timing as much as it runs on fuel. In the morning and early day, many systems are primed for action, which can make processing carbohydrates smoother for some people. Later, the same meal can produce a different response because hormone rhythms and tissue sensitivity shift as your clock moves toward rest mode. The liver, muscles, and pancreas are not doing identical work at every hour, even if the food looks the same. That is why the idea of a single perfect diet can fall apart when timing is ignored. It also helps explain why jet lag and shift work can make eating feel unpredictable. Your metabolism listens to light, darkness, and routine, then adjusts its handling of nutrients accordingly. When your schedule is steady, the clock can coordinate the handoff between fuel intake and fuel use. When your schedule is chaotic, that coordination can wobble, and the wobble can show up as energy swings. Late-night light can shift hormones that guide metabolism. Light is not just something you see. It is information your brain uses to decide what time it is, and that decision influences hormones that shape hunger, sleepiness, and temperature. Bright screens late at night can keep the brain in daytime mode, which can delay melatonin and push the body's rhythms later. When that happens, bedtime shifts, and the next day can begin with less sleep and more appetite noise. Light exposure can also affect how your body prepares for fasting overnight, because night is usually when eating stops and repair ramps up. If your brain is told it is still day, the whole handoff can be delayed. This is why dimming lights can feel calming, not only emotionally but biologically. It helps your system commit to night. A small change in light can ripple into cravings, energy, and timing the next day. The same workout can feel harder when your clock is misaligned. Have you ever done a familiar routine and wondered why it suddenly felt heavy, even though nothing changed on paper? When your internal timing is off, performance can suffer because your body is not in the expected mode for effort. Core temperature, reaction time, and hormone levels follow daily patterns, and those patterns influence how ready muscles feel to work. If you are jet-lagged or flipping sleep schedules, your brain may still be signaling rest while you are asking for output. Fuel availability can also feel different because appetite, digestion, and energy release shift with timing. This can make a workout feel like it costs more than it should. The fascinating part is that your fitness may be fine. It is the alignment that is missing. When routines stabilize, many people notice workouts feel easier again without any dramatic change in training. Your clock is part of your athletic equipment, even if you never see it. A fever speeds metabolism. Heat comes with an energy bill. When your temperature rises, your body is doing expensive work. Immune cells multiply, chemicals are produced, and tissues shift into defense mode. At the same time, maintaining a higher temperature requires extra energy because heat is being created and managed continuously. This is why illness can bring fatigue that feels deep, as if your energy is being spent behind the scenes. It is. Even resting in bed, your body may be burning more fuel than usual because it is paying for a hotter operating point and a busier internal response. Appetite can drop during fever, which seems counterintuitive until you realize the body is prioritizing survival tasks over eating tasks. People often feel chilled and hot in cycles because the set point is changing as the immune response shifts. A fever is not only a symptom, it is a metabolic strategy, and it has a real cost in energy and recovery time. Thyroid hormones act like a master dial for metabolic speed. These hormones help set how eagerly cells use energy, and they influence many systems at once. When levels run high, people can feel warm, restless, and unexpectedly hungry because the body is spending fuel faster than usual. When levels run low, the opposite can happen, with fatigue, feeling cold, and slower physical and mental pace. This is not about willpower. It is biology changing the settings on thousands of cellular processes. The thyroid signals shape heart rate, temperature regulation, and how quickly the gut moves food along. They also interact with other hormones that guide growth and stress responses. Because the thyroid touches so many functions, small shifts can feel surprisingly dramatic. It is like changing the overall tempo of an orchestra. Every section still plays, but the entire performance speeds up or slows down together. Your body turns food into ATP, the spendable currency of life. Every cell needs a usable form of energy, and ATP is the small, portable packet that powers most biological work. It drives muscle contraction, supports nerve signals, and helps build new molecules, one tiny transaction at a time. What is astonishing is the pace. Your body makes and spends ATP constantly, recycling it again and again, because you could not store enough to last very long. This is why metabolism is not just about food. It is about conversion, transport, and renewal, happening everywhere at once. Oxygen helps many cells extract more energy from fuel, which is why breathing and circulation are tied so closely to endurance. When oxygen is limited, cells can still make ATP, but with different trade-offs. The story of energy in your body is the story of ATP being minted, spent, and reminted, like a coin passed hand to hand without stopping. Metabolism is not one number. It shifts with context and time. It changes across the day, across seasons, and across phases of life. A night of poor sleep can alter hunger signals and energy use the next day, and a stressful week can shift how your body prioritizes fuel. Hormones rise and fall on schedules, and your internal clock helps decide when you handle certain foods more smoothly. Illness can raise energy needs because the immune system demands resources, and recovery can require extra building materials. Training can change how efficiently your muscles use fuel, and long periods of low intake can trigger protective slowdowns. Even temperature matters, because maintaining warmth or cooling the body takes work. So when someone asks, "What is your metabolism?" the most honest answer is, which moment are we talking about? Your body is not a static machine. It is a responsive system that adjusts to what it believes you need. Your liver runs chemical factories that keep your blood steady. It is like a tireless operations center that decides what happens next, after every bite and between every meal. When glucose rises, it can pack some away for later. When glucose falls, it can release a carefully measured supply so your brain and muscles do not feel the dip all at once. It also takes incoming nutrients and reshapes them into useful forms, building packages for transport and storage. At the same time, it clears substances you do not want lingering in your bloodstream, including breakdown products from normal metabolism. This is why the liver can influence energy, focus, and even how stable you feel between meals. You rarely notice it working, unless it is struggling. Most of the time, it keeps your inner chemistry calm, balanced, and ready. Brown fat can burn fuel just to make heat. Most people think fat exists mainly to store energy, but brown fat plays a different game. It is designed to waste energy on purpose, turning chemical fuel into warmth instead of storing it. Babies rely on it to stay warm before they can shiver well, and adults can still carry pockets of it in places like the upper back and neck. When the body senses cold, brown fat can switch on and start consuming circulating fuels. It does not wait for a workout. It heats you from the inside, like a biological space heater that runs on your own reserves. Scientists became fascinated when scans revealed that some adults had more active brown fat than others. That raised an exciting question. If a tissue can burn calories for warmth, could it also shape long-term energy balance in subtle ways? Some fat cells can become beige, turning storage into burning. Your body is more adaptable than it looks, even at the level of fat tissue. Under certain signals, some white fat cells can shift into a more heat-making state called beige. Instead of focusing only on storage, these changed cells can start burning fuel in a way that resembles brown fat. Cold exposure is one trigger scientists study, and certain hormones and exercise-related signals may also play roles. What makes this so intriguing is the idea that fat is not just a passive warehouse. It can be remodeled. It can change its behavior based on what your environment asks of you. That means the boundary between storing and spending is not always fixed. Research teams are still mapping how strong this effect can be in humans and how to measure it reliably. The possibility feels almost magical, yet it is plain biology responding to a challenge. Mitochondria do more than create energy, they also send cell signals. It is tempting to picture mitochondria as tiny power stations and stop the story there. In reality, they also act like messengers that help cells decide how to respond to the world. When energy demand rises, mitochondria can change their shape and behavior, and those changes can influence gene activity and stress responses. They produce molecules that work like signals, which can tell the cell to grow, to defend itself, or to repair damage. When mitochondria struggle, the signals can shift toward inflammation and fatigue, which is one reason mitochondrial health shows up in so many areas of medicine. Even how you respond to exercise can be shaped by how mitochondria adapt over time. They are not just making fuel. They are also helping your cells choose a strategy. Metabolism is not only about burning. It is also about communication. Alcohol is fuel, but it changes which fuels get burned first. When alcohol enters your system, your body treats it as a priority to handle because it cannot store it safely. The liver shifts its attention toward breaking it down, and that shift changes the traffic pattern of metabolism. While alcohol is being processed, the body tends to pause or slow the burning of other fuels, especially fat. This can surprise people who think of alcohol only as extra calories. It is also a detour sign for your normal fuel choices. You might eat a meal with a drink and assume everything is handled in parallel, but metabolism often works in priorities and sequences. Alcohol can also lure inhibitions and change appetite, which can lead to choices that feel easy in the moment and puzzling the next day. None of this makes alcohol mysterious. It makes it metabolically urgent. The body clears it first, then returns to other tasks. Fiber feeds microbes, and that fermentation makes useful molecules. Fiber is often described as something you cannot digest, but that is only half the story. You may not break it down, yet your gut microbes can. When they ferment certain fibers, they produce short-chain fatty acids that can be absorbed and used by your body. These compounds can support the health of the intestinal lining, and they can influence inflammation and metabolic signaling. In other words, fiber can become a message as well as a meal component. Different fibers feed different microbes, which is why a varied plant diet can change the microbial mix over time. Some people notice that increasing fiber too quickly can cause discomfort, which is your ecosystem adjusting its workforce and its outputs. With time, many bodies adapt. Fiber is not just roughage moving through. It is a kind of slow nourishment for your inner community, and their work can echo through your whole metabolism. Your body stores extra energy in surprisingly different chemical forms. It does not toss spare fuel into one generic bin. For fast access, it stores glucose as glycogen, packed into the liver and muscles like a ready-use pantry. For long-term reserves, it stores energy mainly as fat, because fat is compact and holds a lot of energy for its weight. It also stores energy in circulating forms, like fatty acids and small molecules that can be delivered to tissues on demand. The form matters, because each storage type has a different purpose and a different release speed. Glycogen is quick, but limited. Fat is abundant, but slower to mobilize. This is one reason endurance feels different from sprinting, and why fasting feels different from skipping a snack. Your body is constantly deciding where to place incoming energy and when to withdraw it. Metabolism is not only burning. It is also banking, budgeting, and timing. Glycogen is your quick pantry, tucked into liver and muscle. Think of it as a fast access stash built from glucose linked into long branching chains. That branching matters because it creates many places where enzymes can grab and release fuel quickly when demand rises. Muscle glycogen is kept close to where it will be spent, which helps you power sudden effort like climbing stairs or lifting something heavy. Liver glycogen plays a different role. It acts more like a stabilizer for the whole body, because the liver can send glucose into the bloodstream when you need it. There is another twist most people never hear. Glycogen holds water with it, so changes in glycogen can shift water balance too. That is why early changes in body weight can look dramatic during diet shifts or hard training weeks. It is not magic. It is stored fuel with a watery entourage. When glycogen runs low, your body shifts toward burning fat. This is one reason long efforts can feel like a different kind of work than short bursts. When quick carbohydrate stores start thinning, the body leans more heavily on fat, which is plentiful but slower to turn into rapid power. Many endurance athletes describe a moment when energy feels suddenly harder to access, and pace that once felt easy begins to feel costly. Hikers sometimes notice it as heavy legs that appear without warning. That shift is not failure. It is a fuel transition. and it changes what your muscles can do comfortably. You may still have lots of energy stored, yet it is stored in a form that requires more steps before it becomes usable. Eating carbohydrates during long activity can soften the transition for some people because it supplies a faster stream of fuel. Even outside sports, this shift matters. It shapes how you feel between meals and how your body responds to fasting. Shivering is exercise you did not ask for. When you get cold, your body has a fast way to make heat. It turns muscles into tiny engines that contract and release in rapid bursts, producing warmth as a byproduct. This is not coordinated movement, so it does not help you walk faster or lift more. It is pure heat production, a way to defend core temperature when the environment steals warmth too quickly. Shivering can feel exhausting because it is genuine work. Muscles are burning fuel and demanding oxygen, even though you are not choosing the effort. If the cold continues, the body also looks for other options, like changing blood flow to the skin to reduce heat loss. Shivering is a reminder that metabolism is not only about food and weight. It is about keeping the body within a narrow temperature range where chemistry works best. When that range is threatened, your muscles become a furnace, and the bill is paid in calories. Cold exposure can recruit brown fat in some people. Not everyone responds to cold the same way, and that mystery has made researchers curious for years. In some adults, repeated exposure to cooler temperatures can increase the activity of brown fat, a tissue that burns fuel to make heat. This does not mean a winter walk is a shortcut to effortless health. It means the body has a flexible toolkit for staying warm, and some tools are more available in some people than others. Scientists often study this by looking at how brown fat responds under controlled conditions, because daily life has too many variables. The excitement comes from the idea that heat-making tissue could influence energy balance without movement, at least a little. It also highlights how deeply environment can shape physiology. Temperature is not just comfort. It is a signal. When the signal repeats, certain tissues can become more ready to respond. Brown fat is one of those tissues, and cold can be the switch that wakes it up. Heat makes cooling expensive, sweating costs, energy, and water. In hot conditions, your body has to protect a stable internal temperature, and that protection can feel like hard labor. Blood flow shifts toward the skin, and the heart works harder to move heat from the core to the surface. Sweat glands pull water and salts from the body to spread a thin layer of fluid that can evaporate, carrying heat away. Evaporation is powerful, but it is not free. It depends on humidity, airflow, and hydration, and it can drain resources quickly. That is why hot weather can make the same walk feel harder, even at the same pace. Cooling also competes with other goals. If blood is needed at the skin, it may be less available for intense muscle work. This is one reason performance drops in heat. Your body is not failing. It is spending energy on survival, choosing temperature control over speed. In the heat, metabolism becomes a cooling budget as much as a fuel budget. Growing children spend extra fuel building new tissue. A child is not simply a smaller adult. Growth requires raw materials and energy because new bone, muscle, blood, and brain connections have to be built and organized. The body is not only maintaining what already exists, it is expanding the whole structure, which raises energy needs even when activity looks ordinary. This is one reason appetite can surge during growth spurts, then settle again, in a pattern that can seem mysterious from the outside. Sleep also becomes part of the story, because many growth-related signals are stronger at night. Children often sleep more for good reasons, and their bodies use that time for construction and repair. Growth also demands nutrients that are not just calories, like protein, minerals, and certain vitamins, because you cannot build tissue from energy alone. When you watch a child change over months, you are watching metabolism in its most ambitious form. It is a building project that rarely pauses. Pregnancy reshapes metabolism to support another developing body. From early on, the body begins redirecting resources. Blood volume increases, new tissue grows, and the placenta becomes an active organ that helps manage nutrient flow. Hormones shift to support the developing baby, and those shifts can change appetite, digestion, and how the body handles carbohydrates and fats. Many people notice that smells, tastes, and cravings change, which can be part of the system guiding intake toward needed resources. As pregnancy progresses, energy demands rise, but the pattern is not simply a straight line. It is a sequence of changes, with different priorities in different stages. The body also prepares for birth and for feeding, which adds further metabolic planning. What makes this so awe-inspiring is the coordination. One body becomes a life support system for another, while still keeping the original person alive and functioning. Metabolism is not only personal. In pregnancy, it becomes shared. It is biology negotiating a careful balance between two sets of needs. Menstrual cycle hormones can change appetite and temperature regulation. Across the month, estrogen and progesterone rise and fall like a slow tide, and the body responds in practical ways. In the days after bleeding begins, many people feel steadier energy and lighter cravings, which can track with shifting hormone levels. Later, as progesterone increases, resting body temperature often nudges upward, and that tiny change can alter how warm you feel at night. Appetite can also feel louder, especially before bleeding starts. And it is not only about desire. The body may be preparing for a possible pregnancy by encouraging a little more intake and a little more conservation. Some people notice they tolerate workouts differently depending on where they are in the cycle. Others notice sleep feels lighter or deeper at different times. None of this is a weakness. It is metabolism responding to a repeating internal schedule that quietly shapes hunger, heat, and stamina. Menopause often changes fat distribution, even without weight change. For many people, the scale can stay surprisingly steady, while the mirror tells a different story. As estrogen levels shift, the body may store more fat around the abdomen and less around hips and thighs, even if total fat mass changes only a little. That matters because where fat sits can influence health signals, including inflammation and insulin sensitivity. Sleep can change during this transition too, and poorer sleep can amplify appetite and lower daily activity without anyone noticing. Muscle mass may also decline with age unless it is trained, which can change body shape while weight barely moves. The frustrating part is that people often blame themselves for something that is partly biology. The encouraging part is that the body still responds to strength training, protein intake, and consistent movement, even later in life. Menopause is not just an ending. It is a metabolic turning point that invites a new strategy for the body you are living in now. Aging reduces muscle unless you keep challenging it. Muscle is not only for lifting heavy things. It is a living reserve of strength, balance, and metabolic capacity. As years pass, the body becomes more willing to let unused muscle fade, partly because maintaining it costs energy. If you stop asking muscle to work, it will quietly decide it is not needed. The consequences can sneak up. Climbing stairs feels harder, carrying groceries feels heavier, and small stumbles become more dangerous because reactions are slower. The good news is that muscle is remarkably responsive at almost any age, as long as you give it a reason to stay. Challenging it signals the body to rebuild and reinforce, which can support steadier blood sugar handling and better mobility. Aging is real, but decline is not automatic. When you keep training strength, you are sending a clear message. This tissue is still required for life. Exercise soreness is not required. Adaptations can happen quietly. Many people treat soreness like proof that a workout worked, but biology does not grade you that way. You can gain strength, improve endurance, and build skill without the next day ache. Soreness often reflects novelty, like a new movement or an unfamiliar volume, and it can also reflect how quickly you ramped up. Once the body learns a pattern, it becomes less dramatic in its response, even while it continues to adapt. That is why a consistent routine can feel easier over time, yet results still accumulate. Chasing soreness can even backfire, because too much damage can delay training and raise injury risk. The more reliable signs are performance and recovery. Can you do a little more with a little less strain and feel ready again sooner? That is adaptation. Quiet progress is still progress. In fact, it is often the best kind, because it can be repeated week after week without drama. Muscle repairs itself after effort, and that rebuilding costs fuel. After you challenge muscle, tiny disruptions in fibers signal the body to begin a construction project. Immune cells arrive to clear debris, then repair processes rebuild tissue stronger than before, if nutrition and rest support the work. That rebuilding uses amino acids, energy, and time. It also relies on signals that tell the body it is safe to invest, which is why sleep and stress can influence progress. People often focus on the workout, but the transformation happens afterward. You lift, you run, you climb, and then your body negotiates how much to rebuild based on the resources it has. This is why protein matters, not as a buzzword, but as a supply chain. It is also why undereating can stall strength gains, even when effort is high. The body cannot build without materials. Recovery is a metabolic event. It is your body turning strain into structure, and it does not come free. Fitness can improve mitochondrial efficiency, using less effort for work. When you become fitter, the same task can demand less from you. Your breathing stays calmer, your heart rate climbs less, and you feel less panic in the legs. Part of that is skill and coordination, but part of it is cellular. Mitochondria can become better at producing energy in the presence of oxygen, which means you can generate the needed ATP with less disturbance. Your muscles may also learn to handle byproducts more smoothly, so effort feels cleaner rather than burning and chaotic. This efficiency is why trained people often look relaxed while doing things that once felt impossible. It is not that they have more willpower in the moment. Their bodies are spending energy more wisely. The same output costs fewer resources, which leaves more reserve for when intensity rises. Fitness is not only strength or speed. It is an upgrade in energy management. It is the difference between an engine that strains and one that purrs. Training changes enzymes, making fuel pathways faster and smoother. Inside cells, enzymes act like specialized workers on an assembly line. They speed up chemical steps that would otherwise crawl, and their numbers and activity can change with training. When you repeat a type of effort, the body increases the tools needed to meet that demand, so fuel can be broken down and used more quickly. That means your body is not only getting stronger, it is also getting better prepared. This helps explain why a beginner effort can feel clumsy and breathless, while a trained effort feels controlled. The same fuels are available, but the pathways are better staffed. Different kinds of training emphasize different toolkits, and that is why sprinting and long-distance work can feel like different sports inside the same body. The most fascinating part is that this is not abstract chemistry. It is experience written into your cells. You practice a pattern, and your body rearranges its workforce to match. Your body prioritizes survival, and it defends energy stores fiercely. Deep inside, your metabolism is built around one ancient question. Will there be food tomorrow? For most of human history, the honest answer was uncertain. So your body treats stored energy like emergency supplies, and it protects them with powerful tools. Hunger can rise when stores shrink. Fatigue can increase, so you move less without meaning to. Even the food you eat can be handled differently, with more directed towards saving than spending. This can feel unfair in modern life, where food is available and goals are intentional. Yet the system was not designed for modern life. It was designed to keep you alive through lean seasons, sickness, and injury. That is why weight loss is not simply a math problem. It is a negotiation with a nervous system that believes survival is at stake, and it bargains hard. During dieting, hunger can rise before weight loss slows. Many people expect a clear pattern. Eat less, lose steadily, feel proud. What often happens is stranger. Appetite ramps up early, sometimes within days, even while the scale is still dropping. Your body senses reduced intake, and it starts turning up the volume on food seeking before it has fully adjusted its energy spending. That hunger can arrive as persistent thoughts about food, stronger cravings, and a feeling that a normal meal was not enough. It can also show up as restlessness at night because the brain keeps one eye open for opportunities to eat. This is not a sign that the plan is failing. It is your biology responding quickly to perceived scarcity. Understanding that timing can help people stay calm. The hunger is a predictable phase for many. It often changes again as routines stabilize, sleep improves, and meals become more satisfying. Metabolic adaptation can reduce burn when intake stays low. When energy intake remains lower for long enough, the body can become thrifty. It is not only that you weigh less and therefore spend less. The body can also shave off spending in subtle ways. You may move less between tasks without noticing. Your body temperature can drift slightly lower. Resting processes can run on a tighter budget because the brain decides conservation is safer than extravagance. This adaptation makes survival sense. If food is scarce, the body tries to stretch the time you can endure it. In the modern world, it can feel like your progress is being sabotaged. It is not sabotage. It is a protective response that helped your ancestors persist through winters and droughts. The practical lesson is that long stretches of low intake can change the playing field. Strategy matters because biology does not stay still while you diet. Weight regain often happens because biology still remembers scarcity. After weight loss, many bodies behave as if the job is not done. Hunger signals can remain higher than expected, and satisfaction can arrive later than it used to. At the same time, the body may continue spending energy cautiously, as if it is still waiting for the next shortage. This combination creates a powerful push toward regain. It is not about lacking discipline. It is about a system that treats weight loss like a warning sign. In nature, losing stored energy often meant illness, famine, or danger. So the body leans toward restoring reserves, and it does so with persistence. That is why maintenance can feel like its own skill set, separate from losing. Routines that support sleep, stress management, strength, and higher satiety meals can help. They do not erase biology, but they can lower the volume of the alarm. Regain is common because the body is doing what it evolved to do. Big meals can trigger more heat production than small ones. There is a reason a heavy meal can make you feel warm, even a little sleepy. Processing a large intake requires more movement in the gut, more secretions, and more transport of nutrients into circulation. The body also has to decide where that influx should go, and that sorting word has an energetic cost. With a bigger meal, that cost often rises, and some of the energy is released as heat. You can feel it in flushed cheeks, warm hands, or a cozy heaviness that arrives after a feast. This does not mean overeating is a clever way to burn calories. The heat effect is real, but it is not a free pass. It is a reminder that digestion is active labor and that the size of the job changes how your body feels afterward. A small meal can feel crisp and light, a big meal can feel like a whole internal shift in gears. Liquid calories can slip past fullness signals more easily. A drink can deliver a lot of energy without feeling like a meal. Part of the reason is speed. Liquids often leave the stomach faster, and they require less chewing and less time at the table. That shortens the window where fullness signals build. Another part is texture. Your brain expects certain sensations from eating, like bulk and lingering presence. A sweet drink can satisfy taste quickly, yet leave the body asking for more substance soon after. This is why people can add hundreds of calories through beverages and still feel genuinely hungry at dinner. It can happen with soda, fancy coffees, juices, and even some smoothies, depending on how they are made. The effect is not identical for everyone, and it is not about blame. It is about how the body reads liquid intake. Drinking energy is often easier than eating it, and that ease can quietly change the daily total. Protein supports satiety, and it helps preserve muscle in loss. Protein is more than a nutrient. It is a set of building blocks your body needs for repair, immune function, and maintaining lean tissue. When calories drop, the body looks for resources, and muscle can become a tempting source unless protein intake and resistance training send a different message. Keeping protein steady can help protect muscle, which supports strength and long-term metabolic health. Protein also tends to be satisfying for many people because it influences gut hormones and takes time to digest. That can make meals feel more complete, which matters when appetite is louder during weight loss. The goal is not to chase extreme amounts. It is to make sure your body has what it needs to rebuild rather than break down. Think of protein as insurance against the wrong kind of loss. You want to lose stored energy you do not need. You do not want to lose the tissue that helps you move, balance, and live with ease. Ultra-processed foods can be easy to overeat quickly. Some foods seem to disappear in your mouth, and that is not an accident. Many ultra-processed products are engineered for fast chewing, quick swallowing, and intense flavor. They can deliver a lot of energy in a short time, before your fullness signals have caught up. They also tend to be low in the kinds of structure that slow eating, like fiber-rich textures that require real work. This is why a bag of chips can vanish while a bowl of beans feels lasting. It is not that one person is weak and another is strong. It is that different foods create different eating speeds and different stopping points. Add distraction, like screens or driving, and the effect can grow. The brain is built to respond to quick rewards, and ultra-processed foods can deliver reward with very little effort. Knowing this can be liberating. If some foods feel harder to moderate, it may be because they were designed to be. Palatability can override energy needs. Your brain loves reward. Your brain is not only tracking calories, it is tracking pleasure, novelty, and the promise of more. Highly palatable foods can light up reward circuits that evolved to motivate eating when resources were rare. In the modern world, that circuitry can be pulled hard by combinations of sugar, salt, and fat that were uncommon in nature. You can be physically full and still feel a pull toward another bite because the reward system is saying, "This is valuable, keep going." This is also why variety at a buffet can lead to extra eating. New flavors reset interest, and interest fuels appetite. The feeling is not imaginary. It is a real drive that can override quieter signals from the gut. The helpful shift is to stop treating it as a moral failure. It is a brain feature. Once you recognize it, you can build environments that make the reward system less likely to take the steering wheel, like keeping tempting foods less visible, and building meals that satisfy with volume and texture. Identical twins can still diverge. Environment changes gene activity. Two people can begin with the same DNA, then drift apart in ways that surprise everyone. One twin takes up endurance sports. The other works nights and sleeps in broken stretches. One lives in a walkable city. The other drives everywhere. Over years, those differences leave biological fingerprints because cells respond to repeated conditions by changing which genes are turned up or toned down. That shift can affect insulin sensitivity, fat distribution, and how strongly hunger signals press. It can also change fitness, because muscles adapt to what they are asked to do. The fascinating part is that this divergence can happen without any dramatic moment. It is often built from small differences that stack quietly, day after day. Identical twins show a powerful lesson. DNA is the starting line, not the finish line. A shared blueprint can still produce two distinct metabolic stories. Epigenetic marks can shift how your cells use fuel. Your DNA is not the only instruction system in your body. Cells also use chemical tags that act like sticky notes on genes, guiding which ones are read more often and which ones are kept quieter. These epigenetic marks can change in response to experience, including diet, physical activity, stress exposure, and sleep patterns. They help cells adapt to what seems normal in your environment. If fuel is abundant, cells may lean toward storage programs. If energy demand is frequent, cells may support pathways that use fuel more readily. What makes this awe-inducing is the timescale. Some changes can appear relatively quickly, and some can persist, influencing how tissues behave long after the original trigger. This is not magical rewriting of your genes. It is your body tuning its gene expression like a soundboard, shaping metabolism through learned chemical settings. Early life nutrition can influence lifelong metabolic patterns. In early development, the body is building organs, wiring appetite circuits, and setting expectations about the world. If nutrients are scarce or inconsistent, the developing system may learn to conserve because it interprets the environment as risky. If energy is abundant, it may learn a different set of assumptions. Researchers sometimes describe this as programming, because early signals can influence how the pancreas develops, how fat cells behave, and how hunger cues are calibrated. The idea is not that one childhood meal decides your future. It is that early patterns can shape how your body budgets energy later on. This can show up decades afterward as differences in insulin sensitivity, appetite regulation, or how readily fat is stored. The good news is that adulthood still brings flexibility. Still, early life can leave a metabolic accent, a subtle bias in how the body prepares for feast or famine. Some people store fat more safely, protecting organs from overload. Not all fat storage has the same consequences. In some bodies, fat tissue expands in ways that keep excess energy tucked away where it causes fewer problems. In others, storage capacity in safer depots seems to run out sooner, and surplus fuel may spill into places that do not handle it well, like the liver or around internal organs. That spillover can interfere with insulin signaling and raise inflammatory signals, even if a person does not look dramatically different. This is why two people with similar body size can have very different metabolic health markers. Safe storage is not a virtue. It is a trait shaped by biology, hormones, and sometimes early development. The intriguing part is that lifestyle can still influence the pattern. Strength training, movement, and dietary quality can improve how tissues handle incoming fuel. Still, the concept matters. Fat is not only about quantity. It is also about where the body can safely put the excess. Visceral fat behaves differently. It releases signals into the blood. Fat stored deep in the abdomen is not just sitting there. It is active tissue that can release hormones and inflammatory molecules that travel directly into circulation, influencing organs nearby and far away. Because of its location, visceral fat is closely connected to the liver and other key metabolic hubs. When it becomes excessive, it can push the body toward higher inflammation and greater insulin resistance, even if the total amount of body fat is not extreme. This is one reason waist measurements can sometimes predict health risk better than the scale alone. Visceral fat is also more metabolically responsive, which means it can release fatty acids readily under certain conditions. That can change how the liver handles lipids and glucose. The story here is not fear. It is precision. Where energy is stored changes what it communicates, and what it communicates can shape the whole metabolic climate of the body. Fat is an endocrine organ. It speaks in hormones and proteins. It is easy to think of fat as passive storage, but it is more like a broadcasting network. Fat cells release signaling molecules that talk to the brain about energy reserves, and they communicate with the immune system about what state the body is in. They also influence how other tissues respond to insulin and how inflammation is managed. When fat tissue grows, its messaging can change. Blood supply may not keep up, stress signals can rise, and immune cells may move in, which alters the chemical conversation. This helps explain why metabolism is not only a matter of calories. It is a dialogue among tissues. Fat tissue has a voice in that dialogue, and it can be loud. The exciting implication is that improving fat tissue health can improve whole body signals, even without dramatic weight changes. Metabolic health is partly about the quality of the conversation, not only the size of the speaker. Inflammation can disrupt metabolic signals and insulin sensitivity. Inflammation is meant to be a short-term tool, the way to respond to injury or infection. When it becomes chronic, it can blur the clarity of metabolic messaging. Cells may become less responsive to insulin, and the body may keep more glucose in the bloodstream than it should. Appetite signals can also shift because inflammatory molecules can influence the brain regions that regulate hunger and energy. Fat tissue, immune cells, and stressed organs can feed this loop, each amplifying the other. What makes this so fascinating is that inflammation can be invisible. You might not feel sick, yet the body can be operating in a slightly defensive mode. Movement, sleep quality, and dietary patterns can all influence inflammation, which means metabolism is tied to lifestyle through multiple pathways at once. This is not about blaming individuals. It is about understanding that metabolic health includes the immune system's mood. When inflammation is high, the body behaves less like a calm accountant and more like a worried guard. The immune system spends fuel. Fighting infection is costly work. When microbes invade, your body launches a response that looks like a full-scale mobilization. Immune cells multiply rapidly, which requires energy and raw materials. They manufacture proteins, signaling molecules, and antibodies, and they coordinate attacks across tissues that may be far apart. Even a mild infection can raise the baseline demand for nutrients because the immune system is building equipment in real time. This is one reason illness can affect appetite in complicated ways. Some people lose hunger, while others crave energy-dense foods. The body is trying to balance resource intake with the need to focus on defense and recovery. The immune response also reshapes how the body handles iron, glucose, and fats, because it wants to starve pathogens of what they need while still fueling your own cells. Infection is not only a battle. It is an economic event. Metabolism becomes wartime budgeting, and the cost shows up as fatigue and slowed performance. Wound healing raises energy needs. Repair teams need supplies. A cut or bruise sets off a beautifully organized repair sequence. First comes clotting and cleanup, then new tissue scaffolding, then rebuilding skin, blood vessels, and collagen strength. Each stage requires energy, and it also requires materials, especially protein and micronutrients that act as tools for construction. If those resources are scarce, healing can slow because the body has to ration. Even when you feel fine, your immune system and connective tissue cells may be working overtime behind the scenes. This is why recovery from surgery or injury can come with unusual tiredness. Your body is directing resources into a project you cannot see. Healing also competes with other goals like intense training, because both demand repair capacity. When the body must choose, it often chooses the wound. That is not laziness. It is priority. The repair teams get first access to fuel, and they stay on the job until the structure is secure. The heart runs non-stop, and it prefers fat for steady power. It beats about once every second of your life, and it cannot pause to refuel. To keep that rhythm, heart muscle leans heavily on fatty acids as a reliable, long-lasting energy source. It is like choosing a slow-burning log over a quick flash of kindling. Even between meals, even during sleep, the heart keeps drawing on circulating fuels and on its own metabolic flexibility. During intense exercise, it can shift toward more carbohydrate use, yet it still returns to fat as the dependable baseline when the sprint is over. This preference matters because it ties heart health to the way the body handles fats in the blood. It also shows how metabolism is not a single system. Different organs choose different fuels for different reasons. Your heart has one job: keep going, always. The brain cannot store much fuel, so it demands a constant supply. Most tissues can stockpile energy in meaningful amounts, but the brain keeps only a small local reserve. That means it relies on a steady stream coming through the bloodstream, delivered minute by minute. When that stream falters, thinking can feel strangely fragile. Focus slips, mood can wobble, and simple decisions feel heavier than they should. The reason is practical. Neurons are always active, maintaining electrical gradients and sending signals that coordinate the whole body. They do not have the luxury of waiting for fuel to arrive later. This is also why the body guards blood sugar so carefully, using multiple hormones and liver processes to keep it within a narrow range. In longer fasts, the brain can adapt and use more ketones, but even then, it still needs a reliable delivery system. Your thoughts feel effortless, yet they are fed like a flame that must never go out. Red blood cells burn sugar only, they have no mitochondria. These cells spend their lives carrying oxygen, yet they cannot use oxygen to make energy in the usual way. They lack mitochondria, which means they rely on a simpler pathway that runs only on glucose. That odd design is not a mistake. Without mitochondria, red blood cells avoid consuming the oxygen they are delivering to the rest of the body. They act like couriers who do not eat the packages they carry. This also means their energy production is limited, so they are built for a narrow set of tasks, mostly squeezing through tiny vessels and surviving long enough to do their delivery route. Their metabolism leaves behind lactate, a molecule that other tissues can reuse as fuel or convert back into glucose later. So even a red blood cell's limitations become part of a larger network. Metabolism loves recycling, and this is one of its clever loops. The kidneys use a surprising amount of oxygen every day. Most people think of the kidneys as filters, but filtering is only the beginning. After they sift fluid, they have to reclaim precious molecules, including salts, glucose, and amino acids, so you do not lose them in urine. That reclaiming is active work, and active work costs oxygen. The kidneys are also constantly adjusting your internal chemistry, tuning acidity and electrolyte balance with fine precision. That balancing act keeps nerves firing properly and muscles contracting smoothly. It is one reason dehydration, blood loss, or poor circulation can stress the body quickly. The kidneys depend on steady blood flow, and they respond to changes by sending hormonal signals that influence blood pressure and fluid retention. In other words, they are not just plumbing. They are managers of your internal ocean. Their high oxygen use is the price of that control, paid quietly every minute. Your intestines are high turnover tissue, constantly renewing their lining. The inside surface of your gut is both a gateway and a border. It has to absorb nutrients efficiently, yet it must also keep pathogens out. To maintain that balance, the intestinal lining renews itself rapidly, replacing cells that face wear from digestion, acids, and microbial activity. This renewal is a major metabolic expense because building fresh cells requires energy and raw materials. It also depends on blood supply and on signals from the immune system that patrols the gut wall. When the lining is healthy, it absorbs well and defends well, and you rarely think about it. When it is irritated, you may feel bloating, sensitivity, or unpredictable energy after meals. The gut is not a passive tube. It is living tissue with a fast schedule. Every day, your body is rebuilding the interface between you and the world, one microscopic tile at a time. The microbiome can change within days, and so can digestion. Your gut community responds quickly to what you feed it, and it can shift before you notice any conscious difference. A few days of eating more plants can favor microbes that handle complex carbohydrates. A few days of richer, lower fiber meals can tilt the balance toward different specialists. Travel can change patterns too, because new foods and new water sources bring new inputs. These shifts can show up as changes in comfort, in stool patterns, and in how hungry you feel between meals. The fascinating part is that you are not only feeding yourself, you are feeding an ecosystem that then produces compounds that interact with your gut lining and your nervous system. That is why digestion can feel different after a holiday week or after a sudden diet change, even when calories seem similar. Your microbiome is fast to adapt, and your body can feel those adaptations as real, lived experience. Antibiotics can shift metabolism indirectly by reshaping gut communities. Antibiotics are life-saving tools, but they can also act like a storm through the gut ecosystem. They may reduce harmful bacteria, yet they can also reduce helpful species that assist in breaking down certain foods and producing useful metabolic byproducts. After a course of antibiotics, some people notice changes in digestion, appetite, or tolerance for foods that once felt easy. In research, scientists have also studied how antibiotics in agriculture historically affected weight gain in animals, which hints at how strongly microbes can influence energy handling. The mechanisms are complex. Changes in microbes can alter bile acid processing, influence gut barrier function, and shift how the immune system behaves in the intestine. Those changes can ripple outward into insulin sensitivity and inflammation signals. The key point is that antibiotics do not only target germs. They can reshape a metabolic partnership you rely on every day. Recovery often happens with time, diet variety, and in some cases, guided probiotic strategies. Some sweeteners reach microbes, and the response can vary by person. Not every sweet taste ends in the same place. Some low-calorie sweeteners pass through the upper digestive tract with little change, then meet the microbiome in the colon. Once there, different microbial communities can react in different ways, producing different mixes of compounds. That variability helps explain why one person can tolerate a sweetened drink easily, while another feels bloated, uncomfortable, or unusually hungry afterward. It also reminds us that nutrition is not one size fits all, because your gut ecosystem is part of the equation. Researchers are still mapping which sweeteners have the biggest microbial effects, and how dose and frequency change the picture. The take-home story is not fear. It is curiosity. A sweetener is not just a chemical replacement for sugar. It is a signal that travels through your digestive world, and that world may interpret it differently than someone else's. Alcohol blocks fat burning temporarily. The liver takes priority first. When alcohol arrives, the liver treats it as urgent, and that urgency changes internal chemistry in a specific way. Breaking down alcohol shifts the balance of helper molecules that many metabolic reactions depend on. With that balance altered, pathways that normally burn fat slow down because the liver is busy processing alcohol and managing the chemical consequences. Meanwhile, some of the incoming energy from food is more likely to be stored rather than used, simply because the usual traffic routes are partially closed. This is one reason drinking can pair so easily with late-night snacks and next-day sluggishness, even if the meal itself was not huge. It is also why the same amount of food can land differently when alcohol is in the mix. The body is not multitasking in the way we imagine. It is sequencing priorities. Alcohol pushes itself to the front of the line, and other fuels wait their turn. Dehydration can change performance, and that shifts fuel use too. Water is not just comfort. It is part of how fuel gets delivered and used. When you are dehydrated, blood volume can drop, which makes it harder to send oxygen and nutrients to working muscles. Heart rate often rises to compensate, and effort feels higher at the same pace. That change in strain can shift which fuels your muscles rely on, because high strain pushes the body toward faster energy pathways. Dehydration can also impair cooling, which adds another layer of stress, especially in warm conditions. Even your perception changes. Workouts feel harder, hunger cues can get confused with thirst, and recovery can feel slower. The fascinating point is that metabolism is not only about what you eat. It is also about the medium that carries everything, including glucose, fatty acids, hormones, and heat. Hydration keeps the delivery trucks moving. When water is low, the whole system becomes less efficient, and fuel strategy can change without you realizing why. Fructose is handled mainly by the liver, not every cell. Unlike glucose, this sugar is routed through a narrower doorway. After you eat it, much of the processing load lands in the liver, which has to decide what to do with the incoming carbon. If the liver has room in its glycogen stores, some can be tucked away. If not, the liver may convert more of it into other molecules, including fats that can be packaged into particles for the bloodstream. This is why large, frequent fructose doses can matter more than a small amount in fruit, where fiber and chewing slow delivery. It is also why the same sweet taste can have different consequences, depending on form and context. The body is not reacting to sweetness alone. It is reacting to where the sugar goes, how fast it arrives, and which organ must manage the surge. Muscles can pull in sugar without insulin during exercise. When you start moving, your muscles do not wait politely for the usual hormone signals. Contraction itself triggers a separate pathway that opens glucose transporters, letting sugar rush in to meet demand. It is as if the working muscle holds up its own entry pass at the door. This is one reason a walk after a meal can help smooth blood sugar for many people. It is also why exercise can feel like it changes your body's rules in real time. The muscle is spending fuel quickly, so it becomes eager to pull fuel from the blood. After the session, that increased sensitivity can linger, which is part of why regular activity supports metabolic health beyond the calories burned. Your muscles are not just engines. They are active managers of fuel traffic, capable of taking charge when the moment calls for it. Glycogen replenishment is faster soon after workouts. Timing can matter. After hard effort, your muscles are like shelves that have been partly emptied. For a while, they're unusually ready to restock, because the machinery that stores carbohydrate is turned up, and the pathways for pulling glucose inward are primed. If you eat carbohydrates in that period, refilling can happen more rapidly than it would later. This is especially relevant for people training again the same day, because a quicker refill can support the next session's performance. For someone exercising for general health, the exact timing matters less, but the underlying idea is still fascinating. Your body has windows of opportunity where it behaves differently, not because of motivation, but because of biology. Recovery is not passive. It is a coordinated rebuilding phase, and nutrient timing can influence how smoothly that rebuilding unfolds. Caffeine can increase fat release, but responses vary widely. Caffeine can act like a signal to mobilize energy. In some people, it increases the release of fatty acids from fat tissue, making more fuel available in the bloodstream. It can also make effort feel easier by sharpening alertness and reducing the sense of strain. Yet the same dose can feel wildly different from one person to another. Genetics influence how quickly caffeine is cleared, and tolerance builds with habitual use. Sleep debt changes the experience too, because caffeine can mask fatigue without fully restoring performance. The method matters as well. A strong coffee taken on an empty stomach can feel very different from the same amount taken with food. This variability is a useful reminder. Metabolism is not only chemistry in a lab. It is chemistry in a person with a nervous system, a schedule, and a history. Caffeine is powerful, but it is not uniform. Nicotine affects appetite and burn, but it harms far more. Nicotine can suppress appetite in some people, and it can raise heart rate, which can slightly increase energy expenditure. Those effects helped create a long, dangerous myth that nicotine is a weight control tool. The truth is that the costs dwarf the metabolic changes. Nicotine is addictive, and tobacco products damage blood vessels, lungs, and the heart. Even nicotine delivery without smoke can hock the brain's reward circuits and keep stress biology on a tighter trigger. Many people also gain weight when they quit, not because quitting is unhealthy, but because appetite returns and the mouth seeks replacement habits. That rebound can be managed, but it takes planning and support. The most important point is simple. A small metabolic shift is not worth trading for long-term harm. Health is more than a calorie ledger. It is the ability to breathe, move, and live without progressive damage. Some medications change weight by changing hunger, not just burn. People often assume weight changes happen because metabolism speeds up or slows down, but appetite and satiety can be the main lever. Some medications affect brain chemistry in ways that increase hunger, intensify cravings, or blunt the sense of fullness. Others cause fatigue, which can lower daily movement without anyone noticing. Some can change fluid balance, which shifts weight even when body fat is unchanged. This is why medication-related weight changes can feel confusing and unfair. The person did not suddenly become careless. Their signals changed. It is also why conversations with clinicians matter, because options sometimes exist, including dose adjustments, alternative drugs, or strategies to counter side effects. The fascinating part is that it reveals how many knobs control energy balance. Food intake, movement, sleep quality, and fluid handling can all be influenced by a pill meant for a different purpose. Metabolism is connected to the whole body, not one system. GLP-1 medicines mimic gut signals, slowing appetite and digestion. These medications build on a natural message your gut sends after eating. That message helps you feel satisfied, and it slows stomach emptying, which can make a meal feel like it lasts longer. It also influences insulin release in a way that supports blood sugar control. The result for many people is a quieter appetite, fewer intrusive cravings, and smaller portions that feel more natural rather than forced. Yet the experience can come with trade-offs. Nausea and digestive discomfort are common, especially early on or at higher doses. The medicines also work best alongside nutrition and movement because they change signals, not the need for nutrients and muscle maintenance. What makes this story remarkable is the idea itself. Instead of relying only on willpower, modern medicine can amplify a normal satiety pathway and help the brain hear the body's enough a message more clearly. It is a new chapter in how we influence metabolism, and it is still unfolding. Continuous glucose monitors reveal spikes you would never feel. Blood sugar can rise and fall without any obvious sensation, especially in people who are not diabetic. A continuous glucose monitor, worn on the skin, turns those invisible waves into a visible trace. People are often startled by what they learn. A food that seems harmless can create a sharp peak, while another meal that looks similar can produce a smoother curve. Sleep, stress, and even a hard workout the day before can change the same meal's response. This can be empowering because it replaces guessing with feedback. It can also be misleading if people chase perfect flat lines, because glucose naturally moves with living. The real value is insight into patterns. You begin to see how timing, portion size, and combinations of foods affect your physiology, not someone else's. A monitor makes metabolism feel real. It turns an abstract number into a story you can watch unfold minute by minute. Metabolomics can read thousands of molecules, like a chemical fingerprint. Imagine taking a small sample of blood, urine, or saliva, then detecting a vast library of molecules inside it. That is the promise of metabolomics. It can capture snapshots of amino acids, fats, sugars, hormones, and many intermediate compounds that reveal what pathways are active. This is more than curiosity. It can help researchers see early shifts toward disease, track how a drug changes physiology, or understand why two people respond differently to the same diet. It is also a reminder that metabolism is not one process. It is a web of branching routes, with traffic moving in many directions at once. Metabolomics can reveal signatures of stress, inflammation, or nutrient deficiency, sometimes before symptoms appear. The challenge is interpretation, because more data does not automatically mean clear answers. Still, the approach is breathtaking. It is like listening to an orchestra by hearing every instrument at once, then trying to understand the whole symphony. Scientists can trace fuel use with labeled atoms, like tiny trackers. To learn where nutrients go, researchers sometimes use molecules that are chemically normal but carry a detectable label. The label might be a stable form of carbon or hydrogen, and it lets scientists follow the nutrient's path through the body. A labeled sugar can reveal how quickly it is burned, stored, or converted. A labeled fatty acid can show whether it ends up in muscle, in the liver, or back in circulation. This method turns metabolism into a map with routes you can actually measure. It has helped answer questions that were once pure guessing, like how much glucose the liver produces during fasting, or how different tissues share lactate during exercise. It is precise, and it is surprisingly elegant. Instead of watching the engine from the outside, you tag a drop of fuel and watch where it travels. Metabolism becomes a story with footprints you can follow. A classic experiment used a chamber to measure heat from life. In the late 18th century, scientists began treating the body like something you could measure, not just admire. They built a sealed room called an ice calorimeter, designed so an animal's body heat would melt a known amount of ice. By weighing the meltwater, they could estimate how much heat the living body produced. It sounds simple, yet it was a revolution, because it connected physiology to physics. The chamber also allowed careful tracking of breathing, which helped reveal that heat production and respiration rise and fall together. Suddenly, the body was not a mysterious furnace gifted by fate. It was an engine with inputs and outputs you could test. That single idea opened the door to modern metabolism research. When you hear the word calorie today, you are hearing an echo of those early measurements taken from ice, breath, and curiosity. Lavoisier helped show breathing is a slow form of burning. Before modern biochemistry, the link between breathing and energy was far from obvious. Antoine Lavoisier helped clarify it by showing that oxygen consumption rises when the body is working harder, and that this rise parallels increased heat production. The conclusion was bold for its time. Respiration is not only about keeping you alive, It is part of how you release energy from fuel, in a controlled, stepwise way. Burning in a fireplace is fast and wild. In a body, the same basic idea is spread across countless chemical reactions, so you get usable energy instead of a flash of heat and smoke. This reframed metabolism as a kind of managed combustion guided by living machinery. It also changed how people thought about food. Meals were not just nourishment in a poetic sense. They were fuel, and breathing was part of how that fuel became motion, warmth, and work. Calories began as heat units, then became food labels. A calorie was first a physics idea, a way to describe how much heat it takes to raise the temperature of water by a small amount. Later, researchers began applying that idea to food by burning it in a device called a bomb calorimeter. The food's energy was measured as heat released, which could be converted into a number people could compare. Over time, that lab number became a familiar label on packaging, as if it perfectly described what happens inside a human body. The truth is more interesting. Your digestion is not a furnace, and your body is not identical from day to day. Still, the calorie remains useful because it gives a common language for energy. It is a bridge between chemistry and daily life. Every nutrition label is carrying a history of water baths, fire, and the decision to make invisible energy countable. The thermodynamic laws still apply, but biology chooses pathways. Energy cannot be created from nothing, and it does not vanish into thin air. Those rules govern every cell you have. Yet within those rules, life has options. Your body can take the same nutrient and route it through different chemical roads depending on need and circumstance. One pathway might prioritize quick energy, another might prioritize building materials, and another might prioritize storage for later. The total energy is conserved, but the outcome feels different because the timing and form differ. This is why metabolism is not only arithmetic, it is logistics. Hormones, enzymes, and organ signals decide which route gets used, and those decisions change with sleep, stress, training, and illness. Thermodynamics sets the boundaries of what is possible. Biology decides what is practical right now. When people argue about metabolism, they often miss this middle truth. The rules are strict, yet the choices inside the rules are many, and they are constantly being made. Mitochondria can fuse and split, changing how cells handle stress. Inside cells, mitochondria are not fixed little beans floating in place. They can join together into networks, and they can divide into smaller pieces. This reshaping helps cells respond to changing demands. When mitochondria fuse, they can share resources and dilute damage, which can support steadier energy production. When they split, the cell can isolate weaker parts and target them for cleanup. This is a kind of quality control, like separating bruised fruit from fresh. The balance between fusion and fission shifts with exercise, nutrient availability, and cellular stress. It also changes in aging and disease, which is why researchers pay close attention to it. What makes it so captivating is the implication. Metabolism is not only about fuel coming in. It is also about how your cellular power system reorganizes itself to stay resilient. The engine is not a static machine. It is a living fleet that repairs, rearranges, and adapts. Exercise can increase insulin sensitivity for many hours afterward. A workout does not end when you stop moving. After activity, muscle cells often become more responsive to insulin, meaning they can take up glucose more effectively at the same hormone level. This can last for hours, sometimes into the next day, depending on intensity and duration. It is one reason regular movement can support metabolic health, even if weight does not change quickly. The effect is also practical. A post-workout meal may be handled differently than the same meal on a fully sedentary day. Your muscles have been asked to spend fuel, so they are ready to restock and rebuild. This is not a reward system. It is a recovery system. It also helps explain why consistent activity can smooth energy swings for some people. You are not only burning fuel during exercise, you are changing how your tissues listen to hormonal signals afterward. It is like turning up the volume on a message the body already uses. A single night of poor sleep can worsen glucose handling. Sleep is not just rest. It is a nightly recalibration of hormones, nervous system tone, and tissue responsiveness. When sleep is short or fragmented, the next day can bring a measurable shift in how the body handles carbohydrates. Cells may respond less efficiently to insulin, and the pancreas may have to work harder to keep blood sugar within range. Stress hormones can run higher as well, which encourages the body to keep more glucose available in the bloodstream. The result is that a normal breakfast can land differently after a bad night, even if nothing else changed. Many people notice this as cravings, afternoon slumps, or a sense that they cannot get comfortably full. What is striking is how fast it can happen. You do not need months of poor sleep to see a shift. One night can nudge the system off balance, which shows how tightly sleep is woven into metabolism. The body keeps score, and it starts tallying at sunrise. Stress can change where fat is stored through hormone signaling. Stress is not only a feeling. It is a hormonal state that can influence how tissues behave over time. When stress signals stay elevated, the body often leans towards storing energy in ways that are quick to access, which can shift distribution toward the abdominal region in some people. This is partly linked to cortisol and related signals that affect appetite, sleep, and insulin action. Stress can also change behavior in subtle ways, pushing people toward comfort foods and reducing spontaneous movement. The deeper story is that the body interprets chronic stress as a sign that the environment is uncertain. In uncertain environments, having readily available energy can be protective. That logic made sense in harsher times, yet it can misfire in modern life, where stress does not always require physical action. The fascinating part is that stress management can become a metabolic intervention. Calmer nervous system tone can change sleep, cravings, and long-term fuel handling, because the signals driving storage become less urgent. The same body weight can hide very different muscle and fat ratios. Two people can share the same number on a scale and still carry very different bodies. One may have more lean tissue and denser bones, while another may have more fat mass and less muscle. These differences matter because muscle supports strength, stability, and often better glucose handling, while higher fat mass can change hormone signaling in ways that vary by location and tissue health. This is why weight alone can be a misleading summary of health. It is a single number trying to represent a complex composition. It also explains why people can feel frustrated when the scale barely moves, even though their waistline, posture, and performance improve. Body composition changes can be quieter than weight change, yet they can be more meaningful for long-term function. Metabolism lives in tissues, not in numbers. When you change what your body is made of, you change how it spends, stores, and manages energy, even if the scale stays stubbornly familiar. Some people have more brown fat, and it can be measurable. For a long time, brown fat was considered mainly a baby tissue, something adults did not have in meaningful amounts. Then, imaging studies began revealing active pockets in some adults, often in the upper back and neck. Researchers can detect this activity because brown fat takes up fuel when it is switched on, and that uptake can show up on certain scans. This finding changed the conversation. If adults vary in brown fat, amount, and activity, then people may differ in how much energy they can burn as heat under specific conditions. Measuring it is not simple, because activity depends on temperature, recent meals, medications, and even how a person was prepared for a scan. Yet the fact that it can be seen at all is thrilling. It turns an invisible metabolic feature into something observable. It also reminds us that bodies differ in hidden ways that do not show up in a mirror. Metabolism has tissues with secrets, and modern tools are finally learning how to spot them. Hummingbirds run extreme metabolism. Their hearts can beat astonishingly fast. To hover, a hummingbird has to fight gravity every moment, and that takes an intense, continuous flow of energy. Their wing beats can blur into an insect-like hum, and the muscles driving that motion demand fuel at a rate most animals could never sustain. To keep up, their hearts race, and oxygen delivery becomes a constant emergency supply line. This is why hummingbirds feed so frequently, because their energy stores are small and their burn rate is huge. At night, many species use torpor, which is a controlled slowdown that drops body temperature and energy use, almost like putting the whole system into a safe, power-saving mode. That daily swing from blazing flight to nighttime thrift is one of nature's most dramatic examples of metabolic flexibility, and it shows how life can survive at the edge of what is energetically possible. Sloths conserve energy. Their slow pace matches a low burn. A sloth's lifestyle makes sense when you realize its food is hard to turn into usable energy. Many sloths eat leaves that are tough, low in calories, and full of compounds that slow digestion. Instead of racing through meals, they run a long, slow fermentation process in a large stomach with microbial help. Their movement matches that reality. By traveling slowly, they avoid burning precious fuel, and they reduce the need for frequent refueling. Slowness also lowers the heat produced by activity, which can matter for an animal that does not want to spend energy on temperature regulation. Even their choice to stay high in trees limits the need to travel long distances in search of food. A sloth is not lazy. It is perfectly matched to an energy budget that is strict and steady. In that sense, it is a living lesson in how metabolism shapes behavior. Migrating birds store fuel precisely. Fat becomes long-distance power. Before a long migration, many birds shift into a remarkable preparation phase. They eat intensely, sometimes doubling their body weight. Then they convert that surplus into fat because it packs huge energy into a small mass. The precision is astonishing. Too little fuel, and the journey fails. Too much fuel and flight becomes inefficient. During flight, fat is delivered to muscles in a controlled stream, and the bird must also manage water balance and heat loss at altitude. Some species make non-stop crossings that last through a full day and night, with no chance to land for a meal. The body becomes a flying warehouse, a transport system, and an engine all at once. This is not only endurance. It is metabolic planning in advance, with the entire trip budgeted in grams of stored energy. Migration turns metabolism into navigation, and fat becomes the currency that buys distance. Bears hibernate for months, yet protect muscle better than humans. Hibernation looks like doing nothing, yet a bear's body is performing an incredible balancing act. For weeks or months, it eats no meals, drinks no water, and barely moves. But it avoids the severe muscle loss that humans can experience during long inactivity. Its metabolism shifts into a carefully controlled low power state, reducing energy use while still preserving critical tissues. Fat stores supply most of the fuel, and the bear manages to recycle nitrogen from waste products in ways that help protect lean tissue. The heart slows, body temperature drops modestly, and the whole system runs on a winter setting that is stable rather than fragile. Researchers study these adaptations because they hint at medical possibilities, like helping humans preserve muscle during bed rest or space travel. A bear in hibernation is not simply asleep. It is running a survival program that has been refined for millions of winters, and it does it with breathtaking efficiency. The naked mole rat thrives on low oxygen, with unusual metabolism. Living underground means living with crowded tunnels, stale air, and oxygen levels that would stress most mammals. Naked mole rats cope with this by shifting how they produce energy when oxygen is scarce. They can dial down their activity and lower their metabolic demand, which reduces the need for oxygen in the first place. Their cells also tolerate low oxygen conditions unusually well, avoiding damage that would harm other animals. This is not just a curiosity of one weird creature. It is a reminder that metabolism is not one universal setting across mammals. It can be tuned to extreme environments, and the tuning changes what tissues can survive. Scientists are interested because low oxygen injury plays a role in strokes and heart attacks, and understanding unusual tolerance could inspire new protective strategies. In the naked mole rat, you see a body built for scarcity, where energy use is carefully rationed and survival comes from biochemical calm under pressure. Your cells recycle parts through autophagy, a cleanup with benefits. Inside each cell, there is a quiet housekeeping system that breaks down worn-out components and reuses the raw materials. Autophagy helps clear damaged proteins and faulty organelle parts before they become a bigger problem, and it frees up building blocks when resources are limited. It is not a trendy detox. It is basic maintenance that supports resilience. When cells face stress, including nutrient scarcity or heavy workload, autophagy can ramp up, helping the cell adapt by trimming what is not working, reinforcing what is essential. This process is linked to aging research because debris accumulation is one hallmark of older cells, and cleanup quality can affect how tissues function over time. Autophagy also plays a role in immunity because it can help cells process and respond to invading microbes. Metabolism is often described as burning and storing. Autophagy adds another layer. It is metabolism as repair, reuse, and renewal, happening at microscopic scale every day. Time-restricted eating may help some people align with body clocks. Many people eat across a long window, from early morning to late night, and that can keep digestion and insulin signals running for most of the day. Time-restricted eating narrows the eating window, often placing meals earlier and leaving a longer overnight break. For some people, this pattern seems to support better appetite control and steadier energy, partly because it matches the body's natural daily rhythm. The gut, liver, and pancreas are not equally ready at all hours, and late eating can collide with sleep biology. A consistent eating window can also reduce grazing, which removes many small decision points that lead to unplanned snacking. This is not a universal solution, and it can be inappropriate for some people, especially those with a history of disordered eating or special medical needs. Still, the idea is fascinating because it treats timing as a metabolic input, not just food type. It suggests that when you eat can shape how your body processes what you eat. When you gain muscle, your body often becomes better at storing carbs. Carbohydrates are not only burned for immediate energy, they are also stored as glycogen, and muscle is one of the main places that storage can expand. When you build more muscle, you create more space for glycogen, which can change how your body handles carbohydrate-rich meals. Instead of leaving glucose circulating for longer, more can be pulled into muscle and stored for future activity. This can support better blood sugar stability and improved performance, since glycogen is a quick-access fuel during higher intensity effort. Muscle also becomes a larger sink for nutrients, which can shift how energy is partitioned after eating. That does not mean gaining muscle automatically solves metabolic issues, but it does change the body's capacity and options. It is like adding more storage rooms to a house. You still need good household management, yet the extra space creates flexibility. Building muscle is not only about strength and appearance. It can reshape your carbohydrate economy in a practical, measurable way. Metabolism includes mood and energy. Hormones link fuel to feelings. Have you ever felt irritable when hungry, or calm after a balanced meal? That is not just personality. It is physiology. Hormones that manage blood sugar also influence the brain, and the brain responds to shifts in fuel availability with changes in alertness, patience, and motivation. Stress hormones can push the body to keep glucose ready in the bloodstream, which can feel like tension or restlessness. Appetite hormones can alter reward sensitivity, making certain foods feel more compelling when you are tired or under pressure. Even the gut communicates with the brain through nerves and chemical signals, which can affect mood in subtle ways. This does not mean food is a simple cure for emotions, and it does not mean emotions are only chemistry. It means metabolism and mood are woven together. Your feelings are embodied experiences, and the body's energy management system is part of how those experiences rise and fall across a day. Every breath removes carbon from fuel. Metabolism is chemistry you exhale. When your body uses fat or carbohydrate for energy, the carbon atoms in those molecules do not vanish. They leave your body mostly as carbon dioxide. That means weight loss, in the most literal physical sense, often exits through your lungs, carried out on your breath. The process is still powered by chemistry inside cells, where oxygen helps extract energy and turn fuel into byproducts that can be safely removed. Water is also produced, and it leaves through urine, sweat, and breath moisture. This is a startling way to picture metabolism, because it connects the invisible work inside cells to something you do every moment without thinking. Breathing is not only about oxygen coming in. It is also about the physical removal of the fuel you have used. Each exhale is a tiny departure gate for carbon, and over thousands of breaths, it becomes a major route by which the body completes the story of turning food into life. As we come to the end of our journey through metabolism, you might notice how much of you is always in motion, even when you are perfectly still. We wandered through the way your body turns food into usable energy, how organs choose their favorite fuels, and how hormones pass messages from one system to another. We traced the hidden work of sleep and stress, the shifting rhythm of daily clocks, and the remarkable ways bodies adapt, from building muscle to conserving energy in winter-like states. We even stepped outside the human world, into hummingbirds that burn through fuel in flashes, and bears that can rest for months while protecting what matters. And now, there is nothing you need to do with any of it. You do not have to solve your metabolism tonight. You only have to let it carry on, quietly doing its job while you rest. So allow your jaw to unclench. Let your tongue rest, and let your shoulders sink a little lower. Feel the weight of your body supported beneath you. Let each breath be unhurried, in through the nose and out through the mouth, as if you are slowly fogging a window. If you enjoyed this sleepy science wander, you might tap like, subscribe, or leave a small comment. It helps this channel find more listeners who need a calm place to land. And if you are still awake, there will be another video waiting on the screen, ready to carry you further into the night. For now, let your thoughts drift like leaves on a slow river. Nothing to chase, nothing to hold. Sleep well, and good night.